Support for this episode comes from Signature Bank.
Hey, this is Gary Head, founder and chairman at Signature Bank of Arkansas. 21 years ago, we set out to build a community bank that knows your name, values relationships, and treats people how they deserve. That's still how we do things today. Whether you're buying a home, growing a business, planning for what's next with Signature Private Wealth Management, or need bilingual banking through Banco C, our team is here to help with local decisions and real relationships you can count on. Call 479-684-3700 or visit signature.bank and tell us you heard about us on I Am Northwest Arkansas.
7 years in, I'm still discovering the people quietly doing the work that holds this community together. Sometimes that means watching a beloved local institution take a pause and then come roaring back with a fresh look, a new energy, and the exact same heart that made it matter in the first place. Danielle Keller is one of those people. She's a serial entrepreneur, filmmaker, podcaster, and now the owner and editor-in-chief of Peekaboo magazine, a resource packed with local stories, expert voices, and the kind of community love that keeps Northwest Arkansas families connected. Peekaboo was originally founded in February 2008 by Kimberly Enderly. For over a decade, it was a digest-sized fixture you'd find thrown into diaper bags all across the region. Then in 2020 hit, and like a lot of things, it had to pause. Now it's back. Under Danielle and her husband, Jeff, Peekaboo officially returned in August 2025. A larger format, premium matte finish, and an intentional commitment to high-quality print in a world that keeps telling us print is dead. Danielle also co-hosts the People of Northwest Arkansas podcast, which gives her a rare dual lens on what makes this community tick, both as a media maker and as a neighbor who's genuinely invested in the stories here. We talk a lot on this show about how fast our region is growing and what it actually takes to preserve our soul through that growth. There's no better person to dig into that question with than a media leader who's betting on it with her own time, her own money, and her own family. Coming up next, my conversation with Danielle Keller.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Danielle Keller, welcome to I Am Northwest Arkansas.
Thank you, Randy. It's so exciting to be here. Finally.
I know. We've been working on this for a while. It's so funny. Nobody ever sees the sausage being made, right? And I know as a podcaster, you can appreciate what goes in behind the scenes to actually get in front of a mic.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It sometimes takes a lot of planning, waiting, patience, rescheduling, all of the things that go into it.
Yeah. Well, you've been patient with me. We've worked it out and we're finally here. So I love that. And I want to jump right into this because I have so many questions for you. You've been doing so much in our community. You've described Northwest Arkansas as this massive melting pot of transplants and transients, people who landed here by circumstance and ended up staying by choice. I feel like I'm one of those people.
Same.
When your family moved from Modesto, California back around 2004, you were skeptical. What flipped it for you? What made you go from why Arkansas to somebody who now tells those stories for a living?
That's a really great question. So my parents moved out here in 2004. My sisters and I, we weren't living at home anymore. And we kind of thought, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you moving to Arkansas? And they fell in love with the area. They fell in love with Northwest Arkansas specifically. And I came out to visit. I'll be honest, I came in June of 2004 and it rained pretty much the whole time I was there or here. And I wasn't super impressed with it. I was like, I don't know, this place is hot. It's very humid. There's not a lot to do. You know, my parents were in Siloam Springs at the time, and there wasn't even a movie theater there. And I thought, what on earth? What are you guys doing? But they had a great house, great property. And then I went back to California, and I was kind of in between places in my life as far as work, career, job, school. And I ended up going back to college, and my mom had just, you know, as moms do, she put me on the mailing list for John Brown University, of course, because, you know, that's what moms do.
Yep.
And I was like, Mom, I'm not ever moving to Arkansas. It's not happening. It's just not. And one day I was cleaning my apartment, and I came across this video that had been sent to me. It was like a DVD video of John Brown University. And I was kind of at a place like, I don't know what I'm doing next. Where do I want to go? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch this and just kind of see what it's all about. And I was surprised at how awesome it looked, and that it had opportunity for me to study film. At the time, I was finishing up my associate's degree in film and TV production. And I was like, oh, this school has like a film program, an art program, and it seems pretty vigorous. And okay, well, I'll check it out. I'll apply. So I applied. I got accepted within like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. And then a couple months later, I was moving to Arkansas. So it was a wild experience. And all my friends were like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm going back to school, going to go live with my parents again, and I'm going to finish college. And it was just a wild journey. And so I came back, transferred to JBU in January 2005, and I was going to be a double major. I was going to do youth ministry and digital media arts cinema. Ended up dropping the major and just did the digital media arts cinema with a minor in youth ministry. Went there for 5 semesters, finished, had a great time, got really involved on campus, did a lot of activities, actually got to plan the first dance that ever happened at JBU. It was it was a lot of fun. I was in the New York Times.
Oh my goodness.
It was a really great experience. And then I went back to California to try to make it in like TV or film production. I was looking at different writers' rooms. So I've always had a love for writing, wrote for my school paper in high school and then in early college. And so I've always wanted to go back to that, and just got out there at perfect time. There's a writer's strike hitting, and then just worked a lot of random jobs. And one of the jobs I ended up working was working on a film that was produced and directed by JBU alumni. And that was kind of my connection back to JBU. And so we worked on the film, and then I came back to Northwest Arkansas to visit my family after we'd kind of wrapped some of the filming. And I was at the student center of JBU, and they offered me a job. They came out, they said, hey, this position opened. It was my old boss's job when I was a student. And that's what pulled me back to Northwest Arkansas, was a job at John Brown University. And so I worked at JBU for about 8 years and did a variety of things, oversaw student leadership, student activities, orientation, got to plan some really fun concerts with students. It was a great experience. Yeah. And then I met my husband. And then we ended up moving to Bentonville, and I ended up stepping away from my job at JBU. I'm trying to tell this really fast because I could go into a lot of detail.
No, well, this is interesting.
This is kind of the overarching. A lot of people don't know this part of my story because so much has just happened over the amount of time that I've lived here. I mean, overall, I've essentially been in Northwest Arkansas for 20 years. You know, there was like about a little over a year that I wasn't here, and I was back in California. And so there's so many things that have happened as a result of that. I remember one of the things that was really kind of pivotal for me in getting back into media was the Bentonville Film Festival. And I remember they announced it. It was the very first film festival happened when I had a newborn baby sitting on my lap, not sitting, laying, sleeping, nursing. And so I didn't get to attend the first one, but I was really excited. And the next year we were already living in Bentonville. And so I'd stepped away, was kind of being a stay-at-home mom, had a 2-year-old and a newborn or a baby. And I ended up volunteering, kind of just trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I was kind of starting to dip my foot back into media and TV production and video production and all of the things. And then in 2017 at the Bentonville Film Festival, I met some women who had made this incredible film. It was just so remarkable. And it was about World War II, and it had to do with like Nazi Germany. And it was just this very, like a very deep story. It was really, I wish I could remember the name of it because it had an impact, and these women had an impact on me. And I remember telling them, I'm turning 40 this summer and the ship has sailed. And they were like, we're in our 50s. The ship is not sailed for
No,
you.
it is not.
And you need to get back into it. And so that was a huge turning point for me.
And this was 2017.
This was 2017.
Wow. So wake up call. You met your halftime moment.
I did.
And you had some people kind of speak into you. It's always funny how individuals that are older than you have that collective wisdom and just the ability to kind of give you what you need to hear at that moment, right? Because I read a book a long time ago when I was about to turn 40 called Halftime by a man named Bob Buford. And, he postulates in that book simply that your best years are ahead of you, especially if you've lived a half life, because it's like you've figured out everything. You've made all the mistakes that you can make. Now you can start to move into a place of being an expert, right? And I'm using air quotes now, but it's like you're finally figuring things out, because we all like to think, oh, well, yeah, if you don't figure things out by your 20s or early 30s, then you're lost. And I mean, it is a long game that we're playing here. I say that all the time to people when we talk on this podcast, but I sometimes have to be reminded of that. So hearing your story reminds me that you have to play the long game.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that I agree with you in that a lot of people think they have to have life figured out in their 20s and 30s. And that's just not true. And I think that some people think you have to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life, and then you just keep doing it. And that's not true either. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to change direction, even if it's just a slight pivot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a big pivot, and sometimes it can just be a really small one. I really appreciate people that have spoken into me over many, many years of my life. And I've always had a mentor in my life. I've always had people just encouraging me. I always loved those teachers that pushed me really hard. Mm-hmm. When I was at the junior college in Modesto and was getting my associates in film and TV production, the woman had in charge of that department, I mean, she was tough. She was really tough. And like so many students hated her. They did not like her because she pushed and pushed and pushed. And she is the reason I do what I do. Like, she really encouraged me in so many ways, because I was like, yeah, okay, I will rise to that challenge. I will go after what you're trying to tell me, and I will go and do better. And I will take this little thing that I've learned and improve it because you're pushing me.
Yeah.
And I've always appreciated people like that. And so when people are saying like, no, it's not too late, I'm like, all right, game on, challenge accepted. Yeah. Let's go. And that keeps happening, Randy.
Well, I like that.
Over and over.
And you know what that's called, what that teacher did to you. It's a form of refinement, and I always like to say it's kind of like the refining fire. When you think of like any metallurgy, gold, silver, any of that, none of that, gold never presents itself in its final form.
Right.
It has to be formed. It has to go through fire, has to burn off the impurities and all the other stuff before it gets to it. And so that teacher in your life burned off some things that you didn't need to carry with you as you progressed. And now look at where you are, where you're doing multiple things, which we're going to get into, and you're not facing them with fear and trepidation the way. And some people that are on the outside looking in at your life say, man, how are you able to do that? Well, one of it is that you gave somebody license to speak to you where you were at that moment in time, because where you were in Modesto and getting your associate's degree is not where you are today.
Correct. It's very far different. It's very, I mean, that was like over 20 years ago as well. Yeah. So it was quite a bit of time since then, but it's really great to look back at those experiences and know how much they impacted my life, and just the things I went through, even at JBU as a student, and then working at JBU, the things that I experienced, and then working on different film sets and with documentary film and working in marketing and media and seeing the rise of social media and just getting to be a part of all those different experiences have really impacted and shaped who I am today.
Sure.
And just in that vein of like refinement, this is something that has really been on my heart over probably the past 5+ years, probably more like almost 10 years at this point, of just looking at every experience that I go through and saying, how can I learn or how can I grow from this experience? Yeah. And sometimes it's not like, ooh, I'm like really thinking about like, how can I grow from this experience? It just kind of sometimes happens.
Yeah.
but knowing that there is opportunities for small growth and there's opportunities for big growth. And like I was telling you before we started recording, it's been a hard month.
Yeah.
And I just had to have like that reminder of, you know what, like you've been through hard things before and you've come out on the other end and you can learn from this. And recently there was something we went through that was really hard with the business. And I was just like, oh gosh, like I just want to throw in the towel. Like I just want to be done.
Make it stop.
Yeah, make it stop. Exactly. Like I just want to sit here and cry and eat bonbons in bed and watch some, TV show. I don't know what I want to do. But that experience helped me learn something. And I was able to lean into that and know that there is growth that's going to come from that. And I always want to have that posture of like, what can I learn? How can I grow? Earlier you were talking about like, oh, you got it figured out and you don't make any more mistakes or you're not making mistakes anymore in your 40s. That's not true.
No, it's not. It's not. No,
I'm making a lot of mistakes and I'm going to make them in my 50s and my 60s and probably for the rest of my life because I'm a human. But I get what you were saying at that junction, but it's just, I don't know. I think that I always want to be that person. I always want to learn and grow from the things that I've experienced, whether it's mistakes I've made or just an experience I've had or an opportunity to learn and grow. It's just important to me.
Well, I mean, and I think it's important to us as adults specifically because we are both adults. And I think, you came here where we met today. We're actually recording this at the Fayetteville Public Library. Shout out to the best library in the region. No shade to any other library in Northwest Arkansas, but this library sets the standard. But as you came here with your son, I am reminded of how much of an example we set for those that whether we bring into the world or you just never know who's looking up at you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you have to set that example and show them what it's like to go through challenges and hard things just so that they can find success in their lives. Because your son and your daughter's success is going to be different than your success. Correct. But it is predicated upon the lessons that you leave them as you guys go about your time here, right? So it's the cats in the cradle and the silver moon, right?
So, Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon.
Yes, absolutely. So, we could riff on this forever. There are actually a number of questions that I have for you around this because we always like to focus on people that are doing interesting things in Northwest Arkansas. And I want to be very clear. I think everybody's doing something interesting.
I agree.
It's just being able to define it. And if you have a platform, it's good to be able to put yourself out there because you never know who's watching.
I agree.
Right? It really is. And so I wanted to ask you this. Your path to actually staying here reads like a movie here in Northwest Arkansas. You went to college at JBU, a local film project. You met Jeff, documenting places like Dogpatch USA before they were gone. I mean, you've done a bunch of stuff. How did that early work in film and documentary especially shape how you think about Northwest Arkansas's history and what's worth preserving?
Oh, that is a really good question. That's kind of a hard question. I think, when I think about my opinion of just Arkansas back when I was living in California and just kind of being a little snooty about it and thinking like, I am not going to Arkansas.
It's beneath me.
I don't even know.
It's a flyover place.
It is a flyover place.
That's what they say.
I honestly had no idea where it was.
Right.
As far as geography, I was like, where even is Arkansas? I mean, I do remember a lot about Arkansas because I was a teen in the 90s. And so that was the height of like, I'm ready to vote. I want to really have an opinion on what's going on in the world and the country. And so that was a huge high time for Bill Clinton. And so Arkansas was definitely on my radar
Arkansas's
in that sense.
Native son.
Very much. So I would say that just some of that early work as I came here and learned more about Arkansas and learned more about the region in Northwest Arkansas, I think that there's just so much value in the people here. I will always go back to the people and how they've shaped this place. And there's the obvious people. There's, the Walton family, the J.B. Hunt family. There's the Tyson family. There's the big families that have really poured into this region. And there's so much value in what they've poured in and what they continue to pour into this region.
Yeah, no
But
doubt.
there's also the small businesses.
Yeah.
And the people that are doing the day-to-day work and who are investing in one another and who are building each other up and who are making an impact in this area on a smaller level or on just like a more intimate level.
Well,
And
I always like to say on their level, right? 'Cause,
Yes.
I mean, I think you need to, what is it? Get in where you fit in. And we all fit in somewhere.
correct.
And so some of us are just going to have larger platforms than others. But whatever your platform is, work with what you got.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I agree. And I think, I really think back because we've been doing the podcast for 3 years now. And just some of the people that we've met are just so fascinating. And you just don't even realize who walks among you here in Northwest Arkansas.
I have no idea.
No idea. I mean, when I first even heard about Dog Patch, I was like, I'm sorry, what? A theme park based on hillbillies? That's where I got my impression of Arkansas in the first place. Was it because of Dog Patch? Perhaps.
Yeah.
But it was such a fascinating opportunity to go through. And it was so cool to learn about the origins of the place and how it came to be, and even how it did have an impact on this area.
Sure.
But it didn't define it completely. It had an impact, but I don't think it defined all of what Arkansas is or what Northwest Arkansas is. And I think that it's really interesting. I really love learning about people and this area. So
that seems to have helped you kind of cut your teeth in the whole motive of storytelling, right? When you think of that. And and after a while, it starts to, not that it comes naturally. I think we have to work at being able to tell stories because you want to kind of capture the interest of others through words and through examples. And so, I mean, it requires a lot of work.
It does. It really does.
It really does.
Sometimes a lot of research, sometimes a lot of finding the people that need to be found. I remember when I was a producer on a documentary about Dog Patch USA. And for those of you that are listening, it's a theme park that is based right outside of Harrison in Boone County, based on a little comic strip called Lil Abner. And the author and the comic of Lil Abner, who wrote it, Al Cap, his son actually was the one who ran Dog Patch USA, the theme park. And I found him. Wow. And it was so awesome to find him.
Yeah.
And to just dig. And then I found like a sister and then a daughter and a cousin. And then I think it was the daughter that was able to get me right in touch with him. And he just lives still in Little Rock. And since then he has passed away, but it was really cool to be able to find him and get him interviewed for the documentary.
Is that documentary on YouTube?
It isn't on YouTube, but I have copies of it. And so I think that the director is wanting to potentially bring it back and put it into film festivals, because we didn't do a film festival run with it.
Oh, interesting.
And so he wanted to just go straight to DVD, was working with a distributor on that. And then things kind of fell apart as they did as we got closer to COVID. And then COVID happened and everything kind of just went to the wayside. And so I feel like there's a resurgence of other things happening.
No, maybe this podcast will stimulate that and people will start reaching out to you saying, hey, I want to see that video.
It's really fun. Well, my daughter the other day, she goes, Mom, I've been learning about abandoned places. She's 11. I've been learning about abandoned places in Arkansas. And there's this one place called Dog Patch. Have you heard of it? And I was like,
you're like, really?
I have. Yes. And we've actually been there. She's like, what? We have? She goes, oh, when it was open? I go, oh, no, not when it was open. I was like, I have pictures of you there when you were little. Like, she was probably about 3 years old when I worked on that documentary. And so it's kind of fun. She's like, oh, can we go there? I mean, it'd probably be trespassing, but can we go? And I was like, I don't know that it's safe anymore.
Is the site still there now?
Some of it is still there.
Okay.
It's been purchased and handed over and over. And at one point, I think the owner of Bass Pro Shops had purchased the land.
Okay.
And that was the last I heard of it. And that was right on the cusp of 2020. Okay. And so I don't know that there's been a lot. I've kind of lost track of it.
Yeah, so, that's really cool. Well, I hope that we'll put some information in the show notes so people can kind of look that up and do their own research, right?
Yeah.
Go to Dr. Google and search Dog Patch USA and learn a little bit more about that. Because you said Little Abner, and I know what Little Abner is. Yeah. Most people don't know. Most people of a certain age don't know who Little Abner is.
No, they do not.
I think that will be interesting as well.
Well, what people will know, which is really interesting, is Sadie Hawkins dances.
Of course.
So
absolutely.
What I thought, this was probably one of my favorite parts of working on the documentary and the things that I learned. I mean, I learned a lot, but because I grew up in an era of Sadie Hawkins dances in high school, and I was like, oh, Sadie Hawkins dances. And it originated from Dogpatch, from the comic strip first. And then it became a thing at the park. And I think it was the University of Alabama that first adopted it to be a dance and to like kind of make it like a thing where the girls ask the guys and like it's a whole thing. But in the park and in the comic strip, for those of you that are interested, it is so hillbilly. Yeah. And it's about like this woman whose dad wants her to get married and she's like super ugly. And so these men have to like run and she chases them. And if she catches one of them, then they have to marry her. Oh my God. It's like a whole thing. Yeah. It was a whole publicity stunt and marketing scheme that they did back in like the 30s or something crazy like that with the comic strip. And then it became like a foot race that happened every day at the theme park. Yeah. Where they would come out and they would run and chase each other and stuff.
That's hilarious. And the Sadie Hawkins dance all over the country.
All over. There's even a song about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway. That's exciting. All right. So I want to this is really interesting to me. And it's something that, as you've talked a little bit about it, but when you and Jeff decided to bring Peekaboo back, you didn't just try to recreate what existed. You went bigger format. Mm-hmm. Premium matte finish, a deliberate tactile experience. I really love opening your magazine and smelling it, actually. Don't tell anybody, but it smells good. It's just interesting, right? But walk me through that decision, because when you talk to most people nowadays, right, when somebody's like, yeah, I'm going to start or buy a magazine and I'm going to double down on making sure we print a lot of copies of this. In this day and age, right, when I'm looking at my iPhone and thinking, man, okay, everything that I need is right on this device. That was I would call that a bold counter move.
Yes.
To where the established practices are of consuming information. Mm-hmm. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great, you have really good questions, Randy. I see why your podcast is so popular and you've done hundreds of episodes. I would say, gosh, we talked about it a lot, the format that we wanted to do and bring back. We are still working with the same local printer that we so when we decided to buy the brand, we shopped around for different printers. We decided to go with Just S Printers, which is based out of Springdale. Mm-hmm. And it's a third generation family owned printer here in the area. Great, great people. And they print on site. And we had great conversations with him, talked about different types of paper, touched a lot of paper through this process, had a lot of conversations with people, friends, family, things like that. And while that little digest size of a magazine is easy to like throw in a bag and things like that, we wanted this to be a little bit elevated. Yeah. We wanted it to stand out as a premier family magazine. With seeing the new magazines like the City Lifestyle magazines coming out, and shout out to you, Randy, being in the Fayetteville City Lifestyle magazine for the month of June.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I love the City Lifestyle magazines and have gotten to know the publisher for the Bentonville and the Rogers one really well. And I just really loved how it felt, what it looked like, and said, okay, this is kind of what we want to model it after as well. And our printer was giving us advice on just the types of paper and things like that. So we wanted it to be something that was an experience, something like you were saying, it feels good to touch. It smells good. It's funny that you say that about the smell, because when we first brought it back, we were doing a lot of the deliveries. And as we were handing it out to people, they were like, oh my gosh, this smells so good.
Yeah, it's crazy, and right? You're thinking like, it's a magazine, but no, it smells good too. So
yes. Yeah. And so we've kind of coined that like term, like that new magazine smell. Yeah. And it's really, I think that there's something really valuable in bringing people together in physical ways, in person, in front of you, something you can touch, something that you can spend time with, rather than just doom scrolling, rather than just getting that fatigue from being, digitally it's gotten so overwhelming and just so oversaturated. And I think there really is, I think you're going to see a resurgence of magazines, books being printed again. I really do. I mean, I'm reading articles about it. I'm seeing it all over. And also what was really cool about going with the matte finish pages, I like how it feels. reminds me of like matte finish photos back in the day.
And
like,
I love that.
I remember it's like, I'm going to check matte finish when I go get my pictures.
I don't want to get any smudges on it.
No, I want to get the matte. And so that, I mean, it's really funny because it is different. It's not traditional magazine.
No.
But I just kind of love the aesthetic of matte, and it didn't cost any different.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of interesting to me because usually I would think matte finish would cost a little extra. But yeah, so there were lots of things, and we wanted it to stand out. We wanted it to be an experience for people. So
yeah. I think people are interested in having some experiences in real life, IRL, as the cool kids like to say, because I mean, everything is so virtual nowadays. Young people struggle, especially young men struggle with loneliness and what have you. And so I think it's kind of bringing you back to a former day in time. I remember this, you'll find humor in this, but like I was like, and I was in college, and as I started adulting and I would travel, I remember I would have to travel with my magazines. I would have my Condé Nast travel magazine, my GQ, my Esquire. I had all these magazines that I carried with me. And then of course the iPhone came along and the iPad, and you could put all that on your, on your digital device. So it was kind of cool. The novelty of it was great. But then I've kind of come back to a place where like I get the Atlantic, and I actually get the actual physical magazine the Atlantic, and it comes to my house. It's the only magazine that I get that physically comes to my house outside of the magazines that I go around town getting, like Cityscapes and Yours and the new Fayetteville magazine. So I think it's, there's people are kind of craving that. They
really are kind of coming back to that coffee table mentality of like sitting around the coffee table, picking up a book, picking up a magazine and reading and just, perusing
Leafing
through the pages. Yeah. And I love that we're really focusing on stories and being hyperlocal and making sure that we're putting real stories by real people in the magazine.
I love that. Well, I mean, I'm a real person, and I actually got to put a real story.
Wait, you are
a
real person?
I am a real person.
That's great to know.
And I had a chance. I mean, I was so honored when you asked me. You have a dad column.
We do.
And I was honored when you asked me to write an article, and I wrote an article about my relationship with my grandmother. And, I've mentioned my grandmother before on this podcast. And, one of the things that she had said to me early on was that I was going to have 3 boys. She knew this. I don't know how she knew this because she was dead and gone long before I had my first child. But she said I was going to have 3 boys. And she said, and I'll never forget this, they're going to do to you what you did to me and your grandfather. And not in a bad way, but just like, you're going to have a lot of the same experiences that we had raising you. Because I lived with my mom, and I'll never forget when my parents got divorced at a really young age. My grandparents told my mom, "Listen, you've got a great job. You should save your money so you can buy a house. Come live with us. Bring Randy." And we all lived in the same town in New Jersey. And I was kind of raised in a multi-generational household where I had a grandfather and a grandmother. I had 2 mothers, basically.
Yeah, you did.
So, yeah. But my grandmother always said, what you did to us, these kids are going to do to you. And man, she was not lying at all. And so that article, which I will link to in the show notes, was kind of like my ode to my grandmother. But I appreciate having that opportunity to kind of share and tell that story. And as I've read other articles that have come out since then, I'm just like, Brian Fitton and a few others, people that I know have written really great articles. But I mean, there's something to be said for that when you can, especially for a more localized publication where you can read articles written by people that you actually know in real life, which is kind of cool. And that's something that I don't take lightly at all. So listen, I want to ask you this because this is around the whole storytelling thing, but Peekaboo runs a lot of first-person blog-style storytelling from local parents rather than just traditional journalism, right? But getting that content requires real relationship work, meeting people for coffee, hearing their story, then writing custom prompts to actually help them write it. Why does it have to be that hands-on?
Well, that's a good question. I keep saying that. That's a good question. It gets to the heart of people's stories. Oftentimes, because of the format and how we're doing this, because we're having it written first person point of view, and not everyone is a writer.
Yeah.
So not everyone, we talk to people and they get really nervous. They're like, well, I want to share my story, but I don't write. And I'm like, I promise I can help you through this.
Sure.
And so in a way, it's an opportunity for them to share their voice. And the relationship part of it is important because this is the community that we live in. And those relationships are so valuable and so important and integral to how that story gets written and read eventually.
Yep.
And I love the process. I love that that is how Peekaboo was back in the day. A lot of the stories were first person point of view, not all, but a lot of them. Yep. And I wanted to carry on that tradition because I think it hits you in a different way. I think it makes it a little bit more personable. I think it gives people in our community an opportunity to share their voice, an opportunity to use their words to share their story. And I don't know that I'd do it any other way. I've thought about that a lot. I've actually thought about that recently a lot too, of like, oh man, we should get some like writers up in here and kind of do more of an interview style, but it's working right now how it is. And I love it.
And what would you say to somebody listening to this that is wondering how they can kind of make their imprint here in Northwest Arkansas with regard to the relationships that are required to be able to even do this, right? Because again, you just reached out to me kind of casual. You're like, hey, you want to write an article for this? And I was like, because I didn't ask you to write. You came to me and I was like, but again, it's because of a relationship that exists, right? Our paths have crossed in a million different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I've enjoyed about Northwest Arkansas, which I want people to hear, whether you're relocating here, you're already here, I think the minute that you take a moment to just lean into what's happening in Northwest Arkansas, you'll find a lot of like-minded people, a lot of folks that are on the same path and journey that you are. Yeah. And you find that. Like, so I feel like I have a kindred connection with what you're doing because I identify with it.
Yeah.
Right. We're of a similar age range and all of that. And I think it's important for people to understand that none of us are alone on this ride that we're on, right? I mean, there's a lot of folks around there and you'd be surprised who's willing to raise their hand and say, I'll help, or how can I help? Or yes, what do you need?
Yeah.
Right. And I just think it's important. And so I drive this home to my kids. I don't know if I'm assuming you share this with your kids, but relationships mean everything.
They really do.
It is the really only economy that I have ever operated in, especially here in Northwest Arkansas, but just in general, you know, your only real value is the people that you're able to connect with, right? That is your true worth.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think it's important. And I think that one thing, when I am an extrovert.
Yeah.
So I have no problem talking to every stranger that exists in our world.
Right.
I got that from my dad. Actually, in our June issue, I actually wrote the Dad's Corner this month because we have a lot of dad stories in the magazine overall. And so I wrote it from the perspective of being a daughter, a wife, and a mom.
Sure.
And my dad, he talked to everyone, grocery store line. And I used to get embarrassed and be like, why do you have to talk to every single person? And that's what I do now.
Yeah.
And I love it. I absolutely love meeting people. Strangers are just friends I haven't met yet.
Exactly.
But that's not everyone. Not everyone can be an extrovert.
Yeah.
Not everyone can just strike up a conversation with a stranger.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Sure.
And so I really want to just encourage those out there that if you aren't an extrovert, find an extrovert and tag along with them. And they will help you. Danielle, who is my co-host for People of Northwest Arkansas podcast, she laughs because she is not the person that will go up to people and talk to people. Like, we've gone to events together and we went to the TEDx talks in Bentonville.
Okay.
And they had us do an activity where we were getting up and we were going to go talk to a stranger and meet them and ask them these questions. And she just leans over and goes, this is my worst nightmare. And I was like, I got you. I got you. And then she did fine.
Just follow my lead. Yeah.
She did fine, all fine on her own. But she laughs, and it's kind of a joke amongst us as if we're having a meeting in a coffee shop. I'm talking to everybody, and then she's meeting all of those people because she doesn't have to meet them initially. She gets introduced to them. And so find yourself some extroverts to tag along with. And, go to some places where you can find people like you, like go to the coffee shops, the libraries, the music stores, the places where you're going to find like-minded people. And it's okay. You don't have to talk to people either. But relationships are so important and so valuable. And I love that we're so connected. Like you were saying, I knew you, so I reached out to you for the Dad's column and you said yes. Not everyone in the issue I know initially. And so having people who can connect me with someone else and say, hey, I need a story about adoption, or I need some people recommended to me about childhood cancer. And so then people are recommended, and then I get to know them and have coffee with them or a conversation with them and get to hear their story and kind of present it in the way that we're presenting it through a magazine and through an article. And it's been really awesome.
Yeah. And no, I can only imagine. And I mean, again, people always ask, how do you get so many people on your podcast? And I'm like, I just made connections with people. I mean, it's all relationships. I mean, eventually it took on a life of its own.
Yes.
But at the onset, I tell people all the time, like my first 15 or 20 episodes, it was all because of one person. One person introduced me to somebody that introduced me to somebody that introduced, but I can trace it all back to one individual.
That's
so
awesome.
You also don't need to know a gajillion folks.
So true.
You can have a couple of strategic friends, and I guarantee you there's one strategic friend out there that's like Danielle.
Yes.
That's that extrovert that, has never met a stranger that she didn't want to say hi to, that will be able to make those introductions for you. And it doesn't take much. Mm-hmm. And I'll give folks another tip that I learned from a young man, Dr. Joe Daniels, and he did this exercise when he was in grad school at the U of A, and he just sat down and had coffee with 100 people.
I love that.
Like no agenda.
Yeah.
There was no ask, because I always try to make that very clear. I'm not, I don't go around asking people for anything. As a matter of fact, I keep all my asks in my pocket.
Yes.
Because I want, you never know when you really need something.
That's
then
true.
You can make an ask.
That's true.
But yeah, he did this whole exercise where he just met 100 people for coffee. I was one of those. I was privileged enough to be one of them. And yeah, I mean, that for me was just a reminder that something as simple as a cup of roasted coffee, sitting down for a half an hour and just chatting with somebody and getting to understand them, where they come from, their world perspective, what they're working on, what really keeps them up at night, what wakes them up in the morning. All of these things play into it because, I mean, again, none of us are, I think what people don't understand is that, especially for folks that are going through things, a lot of times people tend to separate themselves from everybody else. But that's actually the time when you need to be connected with other people.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are moments and times when you need to shut the door from all the outside noise so that you can focus on yourself. And that's an ongoing thing. But I think for individuals, and I know I'm like this, I thrive off of these connections. Like this is like, and people are like, well, how are you able to do that? I'm like, listen, me doing podcasting and interviewing people is like breathing.
Yes.
Right? It's just, it's that easy. I don't think about it. I'm not like, oh, this is a chore or whatever. I've been looking forward to this conversation all day long. And I've been like, man, I can't wait to, this is like my lunch break for me, that I'm just coming and having this conversation because it feeds my soul in terms of, what matters to me. And I think we all need to find that, what does that. And I would venture to say that in a lot of instances, and I'm going off on a diatribe here, but in a lot of instances,
it's a good one.
It's those connections with other people is ultimately what feeds us. That's why, and I'm going back to especially young men that struggle with this even more than young girls, the loneliness thing is a curse. And I'm trying to help young men, my sons included. I'm going through this with my boys. I have a 19, a 21-year-old, and a 16-year-old going on 30. But I'm trying to get these guys, to understand that they can't, sequester themselves in their room, World of Warcraft and all this other stuff. These games are great, but you've got to be able to get out and be around people. And, I'm really thankful that my sons have started to kind of pick up on that. But I know there are people listening to this that are struggling with that with their kids,
sure.
And it's real. And so my encouragement is to keep pushing, keep trying. And sometimes you just need one person to make that difference, right? And to kind of help them out. And so that simply is my encouragement but for any one of us, especially if you're here in Northwest Arkansas and you feel alone, I'm telling you that there is always an opportunity to do something from Bella Vista down to West Fork. There's always something going on and everything in between. So there is no excuse. And you can start out small. And I say that, and now as I'm talking about this, I realize that there is an event tonight that's at the day that we're recording this episode. There is an event that they've never done before called Speed Friending.
Oh,
and
how
it's
fun.
Yeah, it is. It's just kind of like going through, like imagine going through and meeting with different people that you've never met before. They're doing it at the library. Now, originally they'd set it up for like 30 or 40 people, but they've had an overwhelming response.
Like
and now
300.
all of a sudden they're like, we had to move the room from one, and that's a good problem to have. I told the programmer that's doing it here at the library, I said, that's a good problem to have where you're at the last minute having to move the room because you've got, and I said, if nothing else, that speaks to the state that we're currently in right now. That really people are lonely.
Yeah.
And they're craving connection.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that connection can be had in Northwest Arkansas for the small price of $0.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost a lot, but you do have to put yourself out there and make some connections.
Yeah. You have to put yourself out there. And if you're one of the people that's part of the organizing of those events, or you're an extrovert at those events, look for those people. Look for the people that are on the fringe. Look for the people that are not approaching others and are not being approached, and go and approach them and make them feel welcomed and make them feel like they belong there. Because there are so many people in this world who are not like Randy or I, where we just go in and we talk to everybody. Well, there are tons of people that need to be approached. Yeah. And because it takes so much guts for an introvert to push themselves out there and to go to these events.
Yeah.
And then they show up and no one talks to them.
Exactly.
And that just sucks.
It does.
Don't let that happen. If you see people standing there by themselves, go talk to them.
Yeah.
I constantly want to be that person that's like, and I have no problem talking to everyone.
Right. Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
And it's so funny because, and I will give some people hope, is actually, I am not a textbook extrovert.
Okay.
I'm actually an ambivert.
Okay.
Which is, and ambiversion's a real thing. It's been studied.
Yeah.
Daniel Pink has talked about it, but ambiversion is somebody that kind of lives in the spectrum between introversion and extroversion. Mm-hmm. I can kind of go both ways.
Yeah.
When I need to, I can be out there and you think, oh man, this guy's a car salesman. He's, but then there are times when I am a little bit more reserved. And so I kind of can navigate, and I get it. And then I read Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which is a really good book, especially if you're an introvert and you're listening to this and you've never read Susan Cain's book about what really makes you tick. That's a good book to read because it really is helpful for people to kind of have language around, how they operate and how they see things.
Yes.
Right? Because I know a lot of people that are very introverted, but are very successful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure. My daughter is an introvert. She's in a family of extroverts. Bless her heart.
We'll have to pray for her. That's for sure.
I mean, exactly. So she does okay. She's so sweet. She's so creative, and she actually writes for the magazine.
Oh, that's cool.
I love that she has the things that she's passionate about and does a really great job at writing. She actually is an amazing reader, too. She's in 5th grade and has a 9th grade reading level.
I love that.
I know.
I love that.
She's like, when can we go to the library? She wants to go to the library.
Yeah, she should be here with you
I know
now.
she should be
We're putting her on notice. Whenever she listens to this episode, we're shaming you because you're not at the library today, but it's all good because we know you'll be here soon. So
yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that, though, because, again, doing this magazine has been a family affair for you,
it really
right?
Has.
And I do want to talk, just as we wind up, a little bit about the entrepreneurial heavy lifting that exists. The realities of it. You've been really transparent about leaving a stable corporate marketing job to come back to serial entrepreneurship. It's been hard.
Yes.
There have been late nights, family sacrifice, re-educating advertisers on a pricing model that hasn't been updated since 2008. What does it actually take to keep your momentum going when you're deep in those early stage trenches of trying to overcome some of those challenges?
I mean, it's tough at times. I think being a little, what's the word that I want to say? Delusional, maybe, might be part of it is, I think that there's got to be a little bit of delusion when you're doing something this big and doing something that is taking up so much of your time, so much of your money, and just so much of you as a person.
Yeah.
I think the things that really keep me moving forward and driving me forward in this is the people and the stories and this community, because it's one of those things where I can just see that like horizon, like we are hitting it. We're getting closer to it and closer to it. I mean, it's always going to be a journey, there's not going to be this like, oh, we've made it, because I'm going to always want more because I'm that person that I'm like, we're going to do this and now we're going to do this. And my husband's like, can we do good at this for a while?
Roll.
Like, can you slow down for a little bit? I'm like, we're going to start this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. We have a lot of goals. I mean, I have several year goals that I have set for myself and for the publication for our business. And our business is Peekaboo Family Media. And we want to be more than just a magazine.
Sure.
The magazine is the heart of it. The magazine is the first touch point for people, but it will go beyond that. And so I think knowing that we're trying to build more keeps me going. I think my team keeps me going. The people that are contributing keep me going. Our photographer, the advertisers that do believe in us and that are like, these prices make sense. And we want to partner with you, because it's more than just ads, we're developing relationships with our partners, and we're putting them in our magazine in different ways, and we're interacting with them in ways beyond just the printed advertisement. Yeah. One of the things that we started doing this year is speaking of IRL, we started doing these monthly IRLs for Peekaboo, and we are meeting with our partners and our contributors once a month, right when the magazine comes out, so they can see it first. They can get their hands on it first, and just interacting with them and just having time to take pictures.
I think you invited me to one of those. Yeah. And I couldn't
you're invited to the next one too. We're the next one's going to be in Fayetteville. Because we have a lot of contributors.
Put me down.
Well, and also because I need to send this out to all the podcasts. We did a page of local podcasts hosted by men, like men podcasts hosted like local men podcasts. Right. And so you are on this list.
Oh, okay.
So,
cool. There you go.
So definitely need to come to it.
Yes,
and
I will do that.
It's a lot of fun, and it's fun to see people's faces and get excited to see themselves in print, because it's a novelty. It really, truly is.
Can I tell you how many copies of Peekaboo I have sent around the country?
I love it.
I want to say, because I have family all over the place, but I sent like 15
I love
copies.
it.
Of course, my mom got 4. She wanted send me 5. She kept saying, I want more. And then I sent them everywhere in North America. So
Mama Wilburn, we can send you more if you want. I still have plenty of copies of that issue.
So no. And so I love that. And that speaks of one last question that I have for you. And there was a story that kind of stuck with me. And it was the piece that you published from a father here in Northwest Arkansas writing about his 2-year-old son's battle with stage 4 cancer. And then the social campaign you built up around this, you figured out a way to shower that family with birthday love. How do you think about the relationship between local media, vulnerability? Because I think whenever we tell a story, we can become vulnerable in that place. And then the community compassion that exists, especially here in Northwest Arkansas.
I think it's really high. I'm not sure if that's the answer, what you're looking for, what you're asking, but I think that there's a lot of people that relate to it, whether it's something that they've been touched by or a friend that's been touched by it. It also brings awareness to things that maybe they weren't aware of before, and families who need help that maybe aren't getting, I think that there are so many stories out there about XYZ or a person here, a person there, and not everyone's going to be featured, you know? And so when there's different outlets and different media outlets, from TV to radio to documentary films to magazines and newspapers, there's just so many different media outlets that exist.
Right.
And so if we're all telling all the same stories, we're missing out on more people.
Sure.
And so being able to tell stories of people that maybe aren't in every other magazine or in every other TV station that's, I feel like I'm stumbling over my words.
I get what you're saying, but I think what people need to understand is that, first of all, that individual who wrote that article, they are not the only father that has a child that has, childhood cancer.
Correct.
In Northwest Arkansas.
Correct.
So him writing and being transparent about the challenges that he's going through right now with this and struggling as a father, because I don't think any parent wants to see their kid struggle.
Exactly.
Right. Or be sick.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, they are speaking volumes to other parents that may be going through something very similar.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's important for people to share their testimony, to share what they're going through, because you just never know who's also going through the same exact thing. And I guarantee you there's somebody going through the same exact thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When we announced that we were purchasing the brand and bringing the magazine back, a woman had reached out to me who I've known for years, and her kids are older. And she told me a story about how when Peekaboo was in print before, and she read a story about ADHD, a parent had shared their personal story and their journey with their child's ADHD. And this was probably back in probably somewhere between 2008 and 2010, I want to say, is when this story probably came out. And there wasn't as much information about it then.
Yeah.
And she was sitting in a doctor's office, read the story, and she just started going, well, that's interesting. And because of that parent story in Peekaboo magazine, she was able to ask her daughter's doctor about ADHD in her child and got her child on medication.
Yeah.
And it changed her life. And I get goosebumps. I get kind of emotional because that is powerful.
Yeah. And that's just one story.
That's just one story.
Right.
Exactly. And so how many more stories like that exist to where not only do we feel seen as people and in this community, but we can relate and we can connect. And who knows if somebody is going to pass by somebody that they read about, and hopefully they take the opportunity to meet them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that is a clear answer for why Peekaboo magazine why you started it back up in 2025. I mean, you just answering that question is perfect for that. So I appreciate that. So a couple of rapid fire questions for you as we close out.
Right.
We've put you through a number of things. What's your go-to casual date night spot?
Ooh, a casual date night spot is going to be Parkside Public in downtown Rogers.
Okay, Parkside Public. I've heard of it.
Love their burgers. Love all their loaded fries or messy fries or whatever they're called. They have they have a few different varieties and they're really good.
They're really good. Okay, really Parkside good. Public. All right. And what about, where do you like to go to fuel up on coffee during a big production week? Oh,
obviously Confident Coffee.
There we go. Okay.
If you follow me at all, you know that I'm going to be at Confident Coffee. Yeah. It is one of my favorites.
Amber is cool. So, and she's out in the community doing a lot of great things.
She really is. But honestly, there are so many great coffee shops around here too. And I like to frequent all of them. And so thinking about that guy who did the 100 coffee dates, I was like, I kind of want to do that. Because so many of my coffee times are meetings. And so now. And so it's just nice to have coffee and get to know somebody that you don't know.
Absolutely.
I want to do that again.
Man. Yeah. Well, listen, Danielle, this has been a great conversation. It's a real reminder that no matter how fast the tech moves, and it is moving fast, people still want to be seen. They want to hold something in their hands and they want to read a story about their neighbor. What Danielle and her family are doing with Peekaboo is exactly the kind of work that keeps this region from losing itself in all the growth. They're making sure families feel seen, connected, and celebrated. The legacy is in great hands. So we want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun.
To find a physical copy of Peekaboo magazine, check local libraries. The Fayetteville Public Library carries it. Museums, family-focused spots from Fayetteville up to Bella Vista and Siloam Springs. You can explore their themes and digital presence at peekaboomagazine.com and follow the beautiful layout on Instagram at peekaboomagazine.nwa. All right. And if you haven't yet, search your favorite podcast app for people of Northwest Arkansas. Danielle and her co-host, the other Danielle, are telling more of these great stories on a regular basis. That's a wrap on this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. If this conversation left you with something, a name to look up, a magazine to grab, or just a little more appreciation for what's being built here, pass it along. Leave us a review and share it with a friend. And as always, keep showing up for this community because it will keep showing up for you. I'm Randy Wilburn, and this has been I Am Northwest Arkansas. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.
Searching for local businesses in Northwest Arkansas just got easier. From restaurants to roofers, boutiques to baristas, FindItNWA.com connects you to the best local businesses with just one click. Discover something local, something great. Visit FindItNWA.com today. Find it fast, find it local, FindItNWA.com.